Hello again, and welcome along to part 2 of this little mini series on the simple way to tie flies. And today I'm going to show you a few of the very basic materials that you need just to tie some very simple flies, and I'll do a quick demonstration on a couple of little techniques. So to start off, to keep it very simple and very basic, I have two colours of thread. I have black and I have yellow. Now, as you can see behind me here, I have a range of colours, that every colour in the rainbow practically. But you don't need all of those to tie very basic flies. One dark, one light. Of course, hooks. You're going to need hooks. And what I suggest to you if you're just starting off fly tying is that you get them in a size 12 or a size 10, which will make it easier for you to tie. You can then reduce the size as you get more proficient. Two of the materials that are very easy to acquire, and you can tie plenty of flies that will work very well, are the following. This is a hare's mask, basically the face of a hare. And it's got some really nice fur on it, and you can tie one of the oldest flies known, a hare's ear. And anyone who's been fishing any length of time will tell you that a hare's ear is a very, very good fly, and will catch on most occasions and in most conditions. And I also have a pheasant's tail. Now, either of these materials can be freely bought from anyone who sells fly tying materials. Or if you know any hunters who hunt pheasants, you can get a few feathers from them. Hares are a protected species in Ireland. They can in fact be shot under licence, but most people who shoot don't in fact shoot them. They leave them for the other sportsmen. But you can buy one of these from a fly tying supply shop for very little money. Just a quick correction on something I said in the last video when I was describing this vise. I've actually had, this is in fact the third one. I said the second one in the last video. But for anyone who's tying just for themselves, a vise like this will last a lifetime. I mean, I've tied countless flies on just one of these. It would have easily lasted 10 years, and I used to tie commercially at one stage. So that's just a quick correction on that. So now that I've described a few of the materials. Now this is a very basic setup, but these flies, you don't need anything else. You don't need all this stuff that I have here. I tie flies sometimes commercially, and people ask me to tie particular types of flies, and hence I have all this stuff to satisfy them. But in real terms, you don't need any of or you don't need all of that stuff in any case. Now you can build up over time if you feel it's necessary, but with a pheasant tail and a hare's mask, 2 rows of thread and a few hooks, we can make flies that will catch trout all day long. So now we're ready to tie a very basic fly, and it's, as you see, a very simple process. Now I'm going to use one of these hooks here. Now I'm using these hooks. They're actually in a size 10, which is, relatively speaking, quite a big hook for a trout fly. Most trout flies are much smaller, but for demonstration purposes and to make it easier for you to see things, I'm going to use the size 10. Now just place the hook in the vise like so. Now you'll notice that the point of the hook extends out beyond the jaws of the vise, so that's something to be aware of. You don't want to hit your tying thread off the point of the hook, because it will inevitably break it. So when you first offer up your thread to the hook, what I suggest you do is that you just lean it over the hook like this, push down on it with your index finger and wrap it just like that, and working it back along. Now you'll notice that I'm putting on the thread at right angles to the shank of the hook. But when I reach the point where the point of the hook where the thread becomes aligned with the point of the hook, I'm going to now go in at an angle like this to avoid, if I was to continue at right angles, it would hit the hook like that, and it would at some point break the thread. So now I'm going at an angle. And most flies are the full length of the hook shank, their bodies are. Now I'm going to attempt to make a pheasant tail nymph from just this thread, the pheasant tail, and one other little material which I'll introduce to you shortly. Now when you use pheasant tail, you'll notice that they lie along the stalk of the feather in this direction. So what you need to do is to lift them so that they're vertical, but they're at right angles to the stalk, and then pull until you get roughly maybe 10 individual. 1 second now, I'm not sure what I need. Roughly 10 a dozen, that sort of thing. Now you align the ends, doesn't have to be perfect, and most flies, the tails are approximately the length of the body. So in order to get the length of the body, all you do is you measure it against the body like that, and now you swap hands. So now we know that the part between my fingers is approximately the same length as the body. Now in order to tie it in, all I have to do is lean it down at an angle, carry my thread over and pull down, and there we are, that's the tail created. And put a couple of more turns, 3 or 4, and tighten down. Now that's your tail created, and that's essentially how the tails of virtually every fly are created. Now the material I neglected to mention earlier, and again you can buy a roll of it for very little in a fly shop or from Flytying suppliers online, a roll of wire. Now I have dozens of different rolls of wire in different colours. I'm just going to use this one here. This is actually a hot yellow wire, but you can use any colour you like. The most commonly used colour on a pheasant tail is probably copper, but I'm going to use this yellow because it's easier for you to see the contrast between this and the feather. So now, in order to tie this in, the same procedure, I just hold it at an angle, one side of the hook, bring my thread over 3 or 4 turns, and the wire is now held in place. Now I'm lifting up the pheasant tail and I'm tying in the wire again. I'm just going up along like this. Right. Now the pheasant tail, now I'm going to wrap it around in touching turns towards the front of the hook. And when I reach here, which is approximately 1/3 of the way along the hook, I bring my thread over and behind, and then just tie that down like that. Put a few turns of thread so that it won't escape. Now, that's essentially the body part of the nymph made. The wire now is going to be put over the body in order to reinforce it, and because I brought the body in a clockwise direction, I'm now going to bring the wire in an anti-clockwise direction in open turns to create a sort of segmented effect. And again, when I reach that point just behind the eye of the hook, or 1/3 of the way back from the eye of the hook, I bring the thread over and tie that in securely. Now what I've done so far is very, very easy. All it requires is a little bit of practice and you'll be able to complete this part of the fly, no problem whatsoever. So you've now created a tail and a body. Now, typical of all flies, you have a tail, a body, and then you have either a wing or a thorax section of the fly. Now I'm going to introduce just another little technique here that again will take a little time to learn, but it's probably one of the more important techniques you're going to need if you're going to be tying flies for yourself or for anyone else for that matter. Now what I'm talking about is dubbing. Now dubbing comes again in a range of colours. There's a variety of different materials. The list is endless essentially, and you can. What I will do here in this case is the hare's mask I referred to earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull off some fibres from the hare's mask like this. Just pull them out. Now what I do is when I pull out fibres from the hare's mask, I pull them from different parts of the face, just here under the ear, right on the front of the face. If you go to different parts of the mask, you get a variety of different lengths of material, and they all bind together, making them quite durable. So now that I have a bunch of this in my hands, I just mix it together. This is a typical hare's ear mix. So it's kind of a mixture of different length hairs and fibres and underfur from different parts of the hare's mask. Now this is the technique I'm talking about. It's called dubbing. Now just bring the thread in front of the pheasant tail here. Now it's called dubbing, and basically if you slightly dampen your finger, just very very slightly dampen your finger, it will give you much more grip. And what you do is you twist the fibres onto the thread. That's what's called dubbing. Now when I'm doing that, I'm doing it one direction only. I'm doing it like that. Beginners often make the mistake of rubbing and then rubbing back the way, so they're defeating the purpose. What they're doing is they're rubbing it on and then they're rubbing it back off. So one direction only, like that, and it will adhere to the thread. Now when you have some on like that, I have approximately 2 inches of it on there now. I just wrap it around here in front of the pheasant tail. Now I'm pushing back against the pheasant tail a little. Now you can see it's beginning to build up. So now I'm going to add a little more because there's a gap just here that I need to fill. What's important is that you put on a little at a time and then apply it, because it's much easier to add a little than it is to take some off. So now I'm building up a thorax section on this fly. In other words, a bit more bulk at the front. And again, just a little more. And I'm building it up. And now I come right up to just behind the eye of the hook. It's important that you don't crowd the eye of the hook, that you don't bring any of the materials too far forward and block the eye of the hook, which obviously makes it problematic later on when you try to attach a leader. And now all I do is this bit of pheasant tail here, I just bring that over the front like that, and bring my tying thread around, and again 5 or 6, 7 or 8 turns, make sure it's held securely. Now if you catch this piece here and pull, that will clear the eye of the hook for you, and tie again in front. Put plenty of turns. Now this bit is essentially waste, so now I'm going to cut that off. Okay, now I'm going to whip finish this fly. It's a knot, a whip finish it's called. It's a knot that's used all the time to tie in fly tying for finishing off flies. It's a very secure knot. Now there's a tool specially made. This is a whip finish tool that's specially made for finishing off flies, but I'll use this in the next fly just to show you how it's used. But I first learned to whip finish, I didn't even know of the existence of such a tool as this. Now it's an absolutely brilliant tool, and it's very accurate, and it's an essential in my view now. But I
I learned to whip finish with my fingers. And how you did it was you brought two fingers together like that. You formed a circle. You offered it to the hook. You formed a circle again, and again, and again. 7 or 8 times. Bring the thread around in the same place, and then you pull your thread like that, thereby creating the knot. Now I'll do that again just for 2 fingers. Create the circle around, around, around. Now this does take a little learning, and pull. Now the whip finish tool, I'll actually do it now. The whip finish tool does exactly the same thing, just it's very accurate. You can place each turn exactly where you want it. It's actually, once you learn how to use it, it's actually easier than your fingers. So there we are. That's a pheasant tail nymph, a variant you might add, you could say, with a hare's ear thorax. And this nymph has been catching trout for many, many, many years, and is an extremely effective nymph. In fact, it's probably caught more trout than any other trout fly, I'd wager. And I use it all the time. And you can vary the colour of the wire, which gives a different effect. Copper is very good now. This is a hot yellow, as I've already described. That gives it a nice olive sort of hue once it gets wet. But this fly, very simple to tie. You can, once you get your hands around the various little techniques, you'll be able to tie this fly in less than 2 minutes. It's simple, and yet it works extremely well. So now that's our first simple to tie fly. Let me know how you get on in the comment section with the tying of this, or if you're having any difficulty with any particular section of it, let me know and I'll run over that again. So that's part 2 of this little video series, and in the next I'll do a couple of more techniques and show you a few more materials, and I hope you're enjoying this so far. So there we are, pheasant tail nymph, and simple, really, really simple, no complications, no difficulties, just a small bit of practice and you'll make perfect. So once again, thanks for watching. Agus go dtí an céad ó riile, slán go fóill.